Events. Comic book events. What fraction of my library is occupied with the mere thought that maybe one day, maybe I'll have context for the plot elements that elude me so? Why do I torture myself with the false premise of understanding that which cannot be understood?
I love how I prettied up that area back there to use as like a set for videos, and I just haven't used it at all for the last like couple of months. It is just a nice part of my house now, though, on the bright side. I am working on a Daredevil video right now. It's a doozy, though, so it probably won't be out for a while. And a lot of that is because it's really difficult for me to sit down and be able to watch that fucking movie in one sitting, so I've been watching it in like 15-minute bursts and just writing down like pages. I've got like 10 pages of notes. I'm not even halfway through the film yet. Usually I would do like comic book reviews and stuff like that, like new issues that come out that I like or don't like. But there haven't been new comic books in quite some time, so I've kind of just been like bankrupt in terms of ideas for this channel. But today I wanted to talk about comic book events, or more specifically, the tie-ins thereof. What works, what doesn't work, why it works, why it doesn't work. My example I want to cite specifically for events that do work is the 2015 event Secret Wars. I think this is a terrific example of how tie-ins should work in an event, without the event hinging on those tie-ins. A bad example of that would be something like Civil War. Civil War is a great example of an event with tie-ins that just don't work. And it's not because it's a bad event, because I don't think it is. I actually like Civil War in spite of its problems, its character assassinations and mischaracterizations of basically everybody in the Marvel Universe. I think it is a good, compelling story that asks and answers some interesting questions. However, the tie-ins were wildly inconsistent. There are elements of the story that you just didn't have any bearing for, you didn't have any context of unless you read the tie-ins. They're characters that are acting wildly out of their own range of tolerance, as it were. You can bend a character without breaking them or changing them fundamentally, and that's fine. But Spider-Man, like revealing his secret identity, that would never happen. So his tie-in books are just basically JMS trying to justify that decision because he doesn't have any choice. Or with the Frontline storyline, which is the tie-in to Civil War, which is well written, but the fact is it's wildly inconsistent when compared to the actual piece. So in Frontline, it's like Guantanamo Bay, number 42, the prison is, where the superheroes are basically thrown in this slum hole like Bane, and that's just not the case, because in the actual Civil War book, the actual piece, which is the event that we're supposed to be following, written by Millar, it's like this beautiful Google headquarters prison, and I mean, as beautiful as a prison can be, where it's clearly like up to date, and it's clean, and it's safe, and it's not like a torture camp. But in Frontline, which I believe is from the perspective of Ben Urich, they portray it as though it's some sort of concentration center, and that doesn't make any sense. So you have these two conflicting bits of continuity. They're in direct juxtaposition of each other, and they exist simultaneously, and they're being published at the same time about the same characters and people. So the formula for a good event is 1, communication, and 2, execution. So with Secret Wars 2015, the sharing of information was Marvel told their writers, you have 14 months or whatever it is. Hickman's doing this thing. You have a year or 2 years or somewhere between that time frame to figure out what stories you want to tell, how you want to end these characters, how do you want to have these characters, how you want to lay these chess pieces. By the time this event rolls around, you have a year or 2 to figure that out and execute it, right? Tell your stories, and then after you tell your story, once your story is complete, we're going to go over there and do this other thing with those characters, which is fine. That's how that works. the writers were given ample time to figure out what it is they wanted to do with their characters. Dan Slott had a story he wanted to tell with Spider-Man, and the story was told by the time Secret Wars came around. And when it did come around, you could understand Secret Wars, and this is the execution part. You could understand Secret Wars as a 9-issue miniseries perfectly fine without having to read any of the other books. If you wanted to, you could save $50 and just read Secret Wars, and that's it. And you don't have to. You have a good grasp of what's going on for the entire Marvel universe at that time. Everything that's important is happening right here. You've got Spider-Man, you've got Reed Richards, you've got Doctor Doom, you've got all the people who matter, you've got all the events that matter. However, if you want, there are these other stories. There are these like basically what if books that are happening in this same world, but they don't cross over with the main Secret Wars story. They take place in the context. They take place on the chessboard that is established by Jonathan Hickman for the event, but they have no bearing on the actual events, and the events don't have much of a bearing on them. They just exist in the same landscape. So you can read Secret Wars, or you can read Spider-Man Renew Your Vows, and you can understand that Spider-Man Renew Your Vows is a self-contained story that doesn't require you to read Secret Wars, just as Secret Wars doesn't require you to read Spider-Man Renew Your Vows, or Marvel Zombies, or Marvel Zombies vs. Ultron, which is odd, or Thor Core, or anything like that. You can understand the stories by themselves, even though they technically exist within the same context. They're technically connected. It is tangential, and it's not a necessary connection other than the fact that the world blew up, Dr. Doom established a new world out of the pieces of those worlds, and you get that text blurb at the beginning of every single one of those tie-in books. If I run over my long box and I were to grab one of those issues, the first page, you open it up, it says, the incursions occurred, the worlds were destroyed, Dr. Doom created a new world out of the remnants of rogue universes throughout the multiverse. You're looking at one of those universes right now, and then the story starts. And with that one blurb, you understand the world that you're in. You understand that it's a self-contained universe. That you don't need any continuity. You don't need to have any understanding of the greater universe or the events that are occurring. And in Secret Wars, you can just read that book, and you can save yourself some money, and it's fine. Personally, I read Secret Wars, I read Zombies, I read Spider-Verse, Renew Your Vows, others, Thor Core, I read Thor Core, I read Infinity Gauntlet, and a couple other, Ghost Racers. I read all that stuff, and none of it touched the other stuff. All of it was completely self-contained. I read Ultimate End. All of it was completely self-contained, and you didn't need to understand the other books. You didn't need to read anything else. And that's the mark of a good story. A story, by nature, should be able to exist independent of another piece of supplementary material. A piece of supplementary material shouldn't be necessary to understand the main body that is your story. Your story should be augmented, your story should be informed by the supplementary material, but it shouldn't be dependent on it. There's no element in this that I should need this to understand. This exists as it's a freestanding structure, and this is a support column if I want it. It's not a dependent column, as it were. Thank you for joining. Be sure to click the like button if you enjoyed. If you didn't, you can either do nothing or leave a thumbs down. If there's an element to my videos that is inadequate, I'd like to know what it is so I can change it and make it better. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll talk to you guys later.